Let us explore the famous Mercedes-Benz Museum at Stuttgart, Germany. Stuttgart is home to the Mercedes-Benz brand and the international headquarters of the Mercedes-Benz Group. We visited this museum on May 30, 2023, and I was fortunate to capture most the wonderful exhibits in 4K HDR. When this video is viewed in OLED TVs, it will give you a very realistic feel as if you are really inside the Benz Museum. This museum stands just outside the main gate of the Daimler factory in Stuttgart. It is based on a unique cloverleaf concept using 3 overlapping circles recalling the shape of a Wankel engine. This building was completed and opened to the public on May 19, 2006. This museum provides visitors with free audio tours in a variety of languages. The double helix design of this museum also corresponds to the exhibition concept, which divides it into the legend rooms and the collections, offering 2 alternative tours that can be merged at any given point of the museum. The museum contains more than 160 vehicles, some dating back to the very earliest days of the motorcar engine. The pill-like elevators moving up and down on 3 vertical tracks in the main atrium of the museum gives an amazing experience. The double helix design of this museum also corresponds to the exhibition concept, which divides it into the legend rooms and the collections, offering 2 alternative tours that can be merged at any given point of the museum. The museum contains more than 160 vehicles, some dating back to the very earliest days of the motorcar engine. The history of Mercedes-Benz, Gottlieb Daimler and Wilhelm Maybach were working together at Deutsche Gasmotorenfabrik, under Nikolaus Otto. When differences arose during engine development, Daimler left the company and Maybach followed him. The two formed Daimler Motorengesellschaft and started working on IC engines. Meanwhile, Karl Benz formed Benz C. He too was working on IC engines and their implementation in automobiles, boats, and other vehicles. The name Mercedes first appeared in 1901. Mercedes was the name of Emil Jelinek's daughter, who was an Austrian businessman. It was Jelinek who pushed Daimler and Maybach to design cars for races. The two companies merged in 1926, resulting in the brand Mercedes-Benz. Daimler's single-cylinder internal combustion engine that made it all work. The owner of Marie was Otto von Bismarck, German Chancellor from 1871 to 1890. This boat was built 135 years ago by Gottlieb Daimler in Cannstatt. Daimler and Maybach and Benz never met each other during their lifetime. The location of the Mercedes-Benz Museum has a significance. When Benz created the first automobile, a cycle, his son was entrusted in test driving it. Because the cycle had wooden tires, the ride made his bum sore and he stopped much before the intended destination. Where he stopped, today stands the museum. Benz is the first person to have a driving license. This is a 60-horsepower Mercedes Simplex from 1904, featuring a touring limousine body that was fitted to the chassis in 1907. This is the oldest Mercedes-branded vehicle in existence, a 40-horsepower Mercedes Simplex from 1902. One of Mercedes' important early inventions was the honeycomb radiator, which greatly increased the surface area of the radiator to improve engine cooling. The J4L four-cylinder engine was used from 1908 to power airships, among other the LZ-6 through to LZ-8 Zeppelin passenger airships. With its favorable power-to-weight ratio of 6.6 pounds per horsepower, its overhead camshaft and Bosch high-voltage ignition, it was a decidedly modern engine. The DB601 was the world's first production engine with direct gasoline injection. The fuel-air mixture was not produced in a carburetor, as was customary at the time, but directly in the cylinder, thereby boosting output. In 1939, a Me-209 with such an engine reached a speed of 469 miles per hour, a record that remained unbroken for 30 years. The Super Sport Kurz, or Short, was a shortened wheelbase version of the Model S, designed for Hilklem racing in the late 20s and early 30s. It was designed by Ferdinand Porsche. These were the world's first standard production passenger cars with supercharged engines. The supercharger, still called blower in 1923, supplied the small displacement engine with more air, thereby temporarily boosting output from 40 PS to 65 PS. In the lobby, and downstairs and near the cafe, there are some immaculate classics on display you can actually buy. The Mercedes-Benz 500K was the car of the rich and the beautiful. Together with the representative Grand Mercedes, the elegant 500K sports car was the brand's showpiece in the 1930s. Of the 8 different bodywork versions of the 500K, the Special Roadster was the most appealing, the most elegant and, at a price of 28,000 Reichsmark, roughly equivalent to 98,000 euros, the most expensive. The 300 SL production sports car presented in 1954 was based on the successful competition version of 1952. Its space frame weighed only 110 pounds and was particularly sturdy, but did not permit the fitting of normal doors because of the high frame side members. With its characteristic upward opening doors, the dream car of the 1950s popularly became known as the Gullwing. With their reliability, longevity, and performance, Mercedes-Benz passenger cars and commercial vehicles have right from the start been the ideal vehicles for support, rescue, and recovery operations. For many years, Mercedes-Benz has been offering the right special vehicle for every conceivable application and its special requirements. The chrysanthemums on the doors reveal the owner of this car. The Japanese Emperor Hirohito received it in 1935. A particular feature of this Pullman limousine is the special protection equipment which Mercedes-Benz engineered early on. The occupants were protected from possible attacks by steel armor in the roof and doors and special glazing, as thick as a finger, for the side windows, the rear screen and the partition. This improvement on the wire-wheel car was the first automobile model sold by Daimler Motorengesellschaft, DMG, in 1892. Such a car was purchased by Mulay Hassan I, the Sultan of Morocco from 1873 to 1894. He was the first person to buy a DMG motor car and the first monarch to own a gasoline-engined automobile. Mercedes-Benz presented a new prestige car in 1963, the 600. This fully armored state limousine with a raised roof was produced in 1965 as a unique specimen for the company's own car fleet. For more than 30 years it carried kings, chancellors and presidents on state visits, extremely well protected and highly comfortably. In May 1997 the Mercedes-Benz M-Class stood in the footlights. The brand new vehicle not only was driven by stars, but became a star itself in Steven Spielberg's movie Lost World, the sequel to his box office hit Jurassic Park. The sport utility vehicle, manufactured in the Mercedes-Benz Tuscaloosa plant, rescues the movie's heroes in the face of attacks by voracious dinosaurs. German national footballer Lukas Podolski bought a Mercedes-Benz SLK 55 AMG in September 2006, just after the Football World Cup in Germany, in which the host country finished third. In terms of optional extras, the footballer opted for such features as the AMG Performance Package. The Pope Mobile is perhaps the most famous Mercedes-Benz belonging to a VIP. It was built in 1980 for the visit of John Paul II to Germany, to protect the Pope from wind and rain. Following the assassination attempt in May 1981, the bodywork was furnished with bulletproof glazing. The custom-built unit based on the Mercedes-Benz cross-country vehicle subsequently accompanied the Holy Father on many of his journeys. In December 1991 Lady Diana took delivery of this Mercedes-Benz 500 SL. The wife of the Prince of Wales thus became the first member of the royal house to drive a foreign car privately. In response to criticism from the government, the trade unions and industry, Lady Di returned the comfortable and powerful sports car in September 1992. While one helix of the museum tells a roughly chronological progression of the history of Mercedes, the other groups together cars into a specific theme. This is the gallery of Voyagers that highlights some of the many buses, limos, and long-distance cruisers built by Mercedes over the decades. In order to get accurate and useful measurements while a car was in motion, in an era of limited computer and wireless technology, Mercedes connected two cars with a wire bundle umbilical and drove them together around a track. The iconic 60s 230 SL Pagoda is featured in this section because it was the first sports car to have crumple zones, something all cars have now. a 2012, all-electric variant of the SLS Coupe, called the SLS AMG Electric Drive. Fewer than 100 were sold. The optimization of internal combustion engines and the development of alternative drive systems like battery electric drive and the fuel cell to the production stage mark milestones on the road to emission-free mobility. Before the Second World War, Mercedes-Benz competed in the European Championship, winning 3 titles. The marque debuted in Formula One in 1954. After winning their first race at the 1954 French Grand Prix, driver Juan Manuel Fangio won another 3 Grands Prix to win the 1954 Drivers' Championship and repeated this success in 1955. Despite winning 2 Drivers' Championships, Mercedes-Benz withdrew from motor racing after 1955 in response to the 1955 Sierra Leonean Lyons Mans disaster. Mercedes returned to Formula One in 1994 as an engine manufacturer. In 2010, the company bought the Braun GP team, rebranding it as Mercedes. Since a major rule shakeup in 2014, which required the use of turbochargers and hybrid electric engines, Mercedes has become one of the most successful teams in Formula One history, winning 7 consecutive drivers' titles from 2014 to 2020 and 8 consecutive constructors' titles from 2014 to 2021. A gigantic steep bank curve, climbing ever higher into the space of the building, provides the perfect display environment for the silver arrows, touring and sports cars, rally cars, and race trucks. You can almost hear the rumble of the engines and the applause from the spectators, and sense the excitement as the drivers engage in an overtaking duel. Arrows that have become part of car racing history. The creation of these vehicles alone, in 1934, is the stuff of legend, marking the beginning of an amazing run of successes, halted only by the outbreak of World War II in 1939. In Formula One racing, the acme of international motorsport, Mercedes-Benz and Mika Hakkinen have won 2 championship titles. Due to time constraints, I could not include the detailed description of all vehicles displayed in this museum. Those who are interested to know more can visit the virtual tour offered by Mercedes-Benz itself.
So, this was our museum. Do you have any more questions, or do you want to see something special?
Excuse me.
It's downstairs, so this direction is one.
Caracciola won the European Grand Prix Championship for the first time in 1935, claiming 2 further championship titles in 1937 and 1938. These titles are comparable to today's Formula One championship. The display case in Legend 7, containing numerous trophies won by Mercedes-Benz racing drivers, bears witness to the many victories during this era and beyond. These also include trophies Rudolf Caracciola won. What a view to end this museum tour. It's a rare car museum that has such impressive architecture to complement the vehicles within. Definitely worth a visit. Thank you all for viewing this documentary.